Our coverage of Computex 2025 from Taipei, Taiwan is brought to you by Gigabyte, Trix, Thermaltake, G-Skill, and Cooler Master. I made my way over to the Gigabyte booth, a suite. They actually have a pretty fancy setup over here, and it's separate from the main hall at the convention center, which means things are a little bit quieter in here, which is nice. But I want to talk about a few different things that Gigabyte has going on. They have some memory overclocking over here, some world records, which are currently in contention. We have a really cool motherboard, actually a handful of those. We're also going to take a look at some graphics cards. We're going to finish with the laptop. All right, let's get started. Oh, the Intel Aero Lake platform. It's never been something that I've highly recommended because it's not the best suited for gaming. However, it is notably suited for stuff like memory overclocking and hitting world records. And in order to do that, we're using new memory technology like CUDIMM. So this one has two CUDIMMs. So what we're looking at here is the Z890 Aorus Tachyon motherboard, and they have two CUDIMMs positioned just above the CPU right there. Positioning the memory modules as close to the CPU as possible helps shorten those traces, and especially for memory overclocking, that can help achieve those peak frequencies. They hit DDR5 12,752 megatransfers per second with this setup, and they actually have a test running right now to prove that it wasn't just a one-off thing, it's actually functional and continuing to work. This is a highly contested thing, especially for Computex though, because there's lots of overclocking going on right now and lots of people trying to hit those world records. So from my understanding, that record, just as of this morning, has already been broken. But I'm sure if you watch my additional coverage of like G-Skill and that sort of thing, they're going to be continuing to push those limits throughout the week. So if you're a high-end overclocking fan, it's an exciting week. Along with CUDIMMs, we have a new memory technology and interface called CAMM2 or LPCAMM2, and this Z890 Aorus Tachyon ICE C2 motherboard actually has the CAMM2 module, which installs right along the top there. It has a heatsink on it. The benefits of CAMM2 memory modules is that they're thinner and faster and more efficient than traditional DIMMs. It is a new open standard that's actually becoming a little bit more popular with laptops, but some higher-end motherboards are also starting to integrate those. That means it's not compatible with your typical DDR5 memory or even CUDIMMs. But since I think my audience might be a little bit more interested in the AMD platform right now, let's take a look at the newest high-end Gigabyte Aorus motherboard. That's X870 Aorus Stealth Ice. And they actually have the full packaging out here because they put a little bit extra effort into it. So just taking off the lid of the box, we got this little flap that we lift up, and pretty fancy Aorus logo there, and you get a little welcome here showing you the motherboard. And there's the motherboard itself. This is part of the new Stealth series, which is supposed to be really focused on like having a super clean design. And they're going with the all-white aesthetic as well, which I feel like of all the motherboard manufacturers right now, I think Gigabyte has kind of the market cornered on the white finish motherboards. They're doing a really good job with them. Here's a look at the X870 Aorus Stealth Ice actually installed in a system. Looks very clean when you match it up with all white components and a nice AIO. Plugged into the motherboard is a graphics card. That's also a new Stealth series graphics card. I started by looking along this edge and being like, oh, where's the power connector? Are they doing the same thing as Asus and making an edge connector, which I wasn't the biggest fan of? Answer is no. They just have tucked it away back there so you can see your 12VH power connector. They have a white sleeved version. And of course, the other feature of these Stealth motherboards is that they're back to front. They've got the connectors on the back so you can hide all of your cables. And there's an actual look at the motherboard that I'm holding in my hands where we can flip it around to show you those reverse connectors on the back. And I think this is one of the first motherboards that I have seen that has the reverse connectors, and they've also managed to integrate a back plate. They said they're working with case manufacturers to make sure we have compatibility for this motherboard. They said there's 30 cases it's currently compatible with, and they're working with case manufacturers to expand that as well. Also got a large heatsink panel here that covers pretty much the entire bottom of the motherboard, and they have this new M.2 mounting thing that's called Easy Flex. So depending on where like the actual components are on your SSD, whether you have front-mounted SSD components or whether it's got stuff on the back, but this can kind of rock a little bit. So when you install an SSD, wherever it's getting pushed down, it's going to actually help to provide more pressure against the heatsink on the other side. So here are a few build examples using the Project Stealth motherboard. This is built in the brand new Corsair case, the Frame 4500X Panoramic, which has a curved tempered glass piece on the front. And just to show, it maintains compatibility with the back-to-front connectors so you can have a super clean build. Of course, you still have to have some cables. We got a 12VH power cable plugged in right there. Fractal makes some sweet, sexy cases, and this is the Fractal's North XLRC, I should say. The RC is for reverse connector. Another case manufacturer who Gigabyte has worked with in order to make sure that you can buy a case that has support for those reverse connector motherboards. And then one more over here. Hey, that one looks familiar. This is from Fantex. This is the Evolve X2. Not the Matrix version that has the LED panel on the bottom, but the original X2, but with back-to-front connector support. How about some video cards? Gigabyte makes lots of those, and I came over here looking for a couple in particular. NVIDIA cards, I mean, those are cool, but I was looking for these. Not available yet. There are two cards that are still under NDA as of the filming of this video, one down there and one up top, so stay tuned. Perhaps we will learn what those are very, very soon. One card I did want to take a closer look at. If I can lift it up, it's quite heavy. Right, so this is the Aorus RTX 5090 Stealth, the one that I showed you installed in the case before. It is still just as large as their Aorus RTX 5080 and 5090 GPUs. I should say Stealth Ice. Gigabyte calls their all-white components Ice. That's the brand theme. But you still have the big, fat, massive cooler. You still have the LCD screen there on the side, which you can customize with the Gigabyte software. And while opinions are still fairly mixed on the 12VH power connector, it is pretty convenient to have it tucked away right there, especially given the width of this card, since it's a bit taller than the typical ones. If you have a tempered glass side panel or something like that along this side, having the plug on this side can conflict with that. So it's not just an aesthetic feature, it's functional as well. Here's the motherboard I really wanted to show you guys. X870E Aorus Master, X3D Ice. This one has a new X3D overclocking mode. They're calling it V2. I don't know all that much about it. I just got a really brief rundown of it, but it's supposed to be better than X3D overclocking version 1. And it's telling me for gaming, if you're in a CPU limited situation, it's going to provide something like 10 or 11% better performance. These are Gigabyte's words, not mine, so do take them with a little bit of a grain of salt. Also for productivity though, they said it can provide up to about a 30% boost. We don't know when this motherboard will launch or how much it will cost. It is an Aorus Master motherboard, which means it's probably going to be fairly expensive, but I've discussed before whether or not super expensive motherboards are worth the price. I wanted to show you some of the special features of this one, so you can tell me if you think it's worth it. We have not one, but two quick release buttons. So not just your top PCI Express slot, but actually the one right below it as well. You can lock and unlock with that button in order to move your graphics card. So if you have perhaps a dual GPU setup for like AI farm or another workstation configuration, that would be suitable for that. Or if you just have an extra card in the lower slot that is a little bit blocked in by your like massive 4-slot Gigabyte graphics card, then you're gonna have a little bit better access to it. We're also maintaining that back plate, and I was noting that the back plate seems to also still have the cutouts for the back to front connectors on the board, although this motherboard is not a BTF board. Still, I do appreciate a back plate on a motherboard. If you're going to be paying upwards of $500 or $600 for one, I feel like a back plate is the least thing they can add. And lots of those high-end motherboard features that are actually quite useful, like HDMI right there. We have a debug LED. Over on this side, we have an LCD display that's right underneath that panel, so that's going to shine through there. That is the same design as the existing non-white version of the X870E Aorus Master. And down here on the bottom we have a quick release, which I'm going to fail at opening because my hand is one hand. And beneath there we have a not 1M.2, not 2M.2, not 3M.2, but 4M.2. The reason this one doesn't have a heat spreader on the back is because that's your BIOS chip right there, so they had to provide some clearance for that one. But this board is of course also going to feature like your best in class power delivery from Gigabyte. And again, it's got that X3D Turbo Mode V2, which I am somewhat curious to try out or learn more about. Like how much of a benefit is that going to provide? Got to do the side-by-side comparison as well. I guess it's a standard ATX motherboard. No, did I mention that? Also standard ATX motherboard. They fit all that stuff in there, and they didn't go EATX or anything like that. And lastly, on the I/O, we have a 5 gig and a 10 gig Ethernet port and Wi-Fi 7. Bonkers networking on this board too. Pretty nice. How much will it cost? I don't know yet. Gigabyte, of course, has like X870 Aorus Stealth Ice motherboards. You've got the B850 Aorus Elite Wi-Fi 7 Ice down here as well. So these are going to have quite the same feature set as the master board, but they are going to be a lot more price competitive, more reasonably priced for those. One more motherboard I wanted to show you guys is this one right here. This is actually going to be a China exclusive motherboard. Only in the PRC will this be available. It's the B850M Aorus Elite Wi-Fi 7 Ice-P, and they made like an anime figure out of their Aorus mascot or something like that was explained to me, but this board just has some unique design features, a bit of subtle orange highlights, which I thought was nice. That Aorus logo down there on the bottom, and some really cool design features on the back here as well, like the hills and valleys of China. I don't know, I just thought that was really cool. Guys, again, this is only going to be available in China, but hey, Gigabyte is probably going to be watching this video to see your comments and everything, so if you're looking at this board and you're like, wow, that's beautiful, especially for some of the new micro ATX chassis that we've seen this week, let Gigabyte know. Maybe they could bring this to the US as well. Next, we're going to take a look at some Gigabyte laptops, and these are the high-end ones, the performance laptops that you might have seen at CES, featuring like RTX 5090s. I think I might have shown you guys these briefly, but these are already out on the market. We're not going to focus too much on those. We're going to talk about these, the Gigabyte Aero lineup. This is the Aero X16 with a 16-inch screen. We're actually using a Gigabyte laptop to edit all the videos that you're watching on my channel for Computex 2025. A big thank you to them for loaning that one to us. But as opposed to laptops down there that are very high-end and can get very expensive, the Gigabyte Aero X16 is meant to provide you with like a very nice laptop that's not going to be crazy expensive. Laptop specs, of course, can vary a lot, so these will go all the way up to AMD Ryzen AI9 HX370 processors. And for the graphics, it can go up to an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5070 laptop version GPU. The display is a 16-inch WXGA, that's 2560 by 1600, which is a 16 by 10 aspect ratio, which is nice for a laptop. IPS level, 165 Hz, 3 millisecond response time, and 400 nits of brightness. Looking at a couple black versions right here, these are very thin and light, and while these don't have a larger battery than the previous version, they have increased the battery life by adding more efficiency. And I don't know exactly how they did that, but basically it's saying up to 14 hours of battery life, and since they didn't increase the battery size, that's how they're maintaining this as a pretty thin and light option. 1.9 kilograms specifically is what it's going to be, and it's going to be available in a couple finishes as well. We have the black finish, or I should be more specific, this is actually space gray, so a little bit off black. This has been handled a lot, which is why it's picked up a few fingerprints. And then we have this white version over here. This is actually not like white, it is sort of a slightly off white because it is metal, it's not white plastic. So this is a silver aluminum cover on here, and in order to get this white finish, they've anodized it white, which is a pretty cool process, but that's going to make sure you don't have like discoloration over time like you do with a lot of white components, especially something like a laptop that goes out and sits in the sun a lot perhaps. And another feature of this laptop is actually the box. You can see the box is pretty thin. They're trying to minimize the amount of packing material and the amount of waste that goes into the packaging and shipping of these laptops. They're still maintaining a plastic handle on top. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I use a laptop, I have a board or something like on my lap between myself and the laptop so it doesn't overheat. They've designed the box so after you take the laptop out, you go ahead and place that like that. Kind of sits down in there. And then you've got a gap there directly underneath the most heat-producing components of the laptop. So if you don't have a laptop stand or you just want to reuse the box, you can use it for a little bit of laptop cooling. That's pretty nice too. Last thing to mention is they've also upgraded the keyboard. This is the older standard style keyboard. The new keyboard uses what they're calling golden curve switches. These are made to be easy to type on. So if you're typing a lot, taking your laptop on the go, doing a lot of work on it, you're not going to have quite as much fatigue over time. They've also made the actual keycaps just a little bit larger with smaller gaps in between to improve the typing experience. For the Aero PCs I was talking about over here, they're going to be launching at the end of May, beginning of June in Canada. And then Gigabyte is actually working on opening up a factory in Vietnam to maybe make sure that they can import stuff to the US without having to pay more money to the government. So these laptops are still coming to the US, but look for them more like later in June or July. All right, let's talk about the Gigabyte gaming laptops over here. These are not part of the Aero line, so these are going to be a little bit more on the budget side, a little bit more geared towards, say, college students who want to play video games, but also need to get some work done. Because when you're in college, you got to get work done. The one on the left here is the A16 with the 16-inch screen. These have a lot of similarities to the Aero laptop in that they still have a 14-hour battery life, up to an AMD Ryzen 7 260 processor in this one, and it has a max TGP of 80 watts. Looks like they're using the same panel on this one as well, 16-inch 2560 by 1600, 165 Hz with variable refresh rate. And for GPUs, this will go up to an RTX 5070. Here's a quick look at the back. It has a pretty clean design, and perhaps for people who are using this in an environment like if you're in an office having a meeting or doing a group project or something, they have a lay flat hinge. Just give a little bit more flexibility there so you can lay it flat and everyone can see your screen. The one on the right here is actually the A16 Pro. Look for this one to launch a little bit later after the A16 Non-Pro. It bumps the max TGP up to 115 watts, and as a result, they're also able to integrate up to a GeForce RTX 5080 laptop GPU. But of course, if a 16-inch laptop is a little bit too small for you, they're going to have an A18 version as well. This one, they said they're looking for a little bit later in the year, but they have it on display here where you can see the bottom as well. Look, what a nice looking bottom of a laptop. But anyway, you can see like functional stuff here, like, you know, you got some gaps for the fans and everything, and of course that 180-degree hinge. Right, so some really cool motherboards, graphics cards, laptops here on display at the Gigabyte Suite booth. I'm never sure what to call these things, but thank you guys so much for watching this video. That is all the time I have. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed it. Go ahead and leave Gigabyte some feedback in the comment section down below if you saw anything that you really liked. If you saw like that motherboard and you wanted them to bring it to the US, that would be cool. And a huge thank you to my sponsors for Computex 2025, Gigabyte of course, as well as G-Skill, Thermaltake, Trix, and Cooler Master. We'll see you guys in the next video.